Okay,
We'll make
we
our
should be,
answers brief.
yeah.
They can Google us if they want to know all our
Okay,
cred.
let's go. Thumbs up. How do we know when we're live? I think we got a thumbs up, Shell.
Hi, welcome. I'm Shelly McLaughlin with Program Director with Pathfinders for Autism. Just to let you know, I do have a 23-year-old son on the autism spectrum.
And I'm Officer Laurie Reyes from the Montgomery County Police Autism, IDD, Intellectual Developmental Disabilities Outreach Unit that we've had for 20 years now.
All right, so today we're going to talk about some reasons why our loved ones might wander off or elope and some of the strategies that we can put in place to help keep our loved ones safe. All right, so what do we mean by elopement? That's when a person basically just up and bolts from the scene without any kind of warning, without any kind of notice. And unfortunately, a lot of times when the person does just take off, they end up putting themselves in potentially very dangerous situations. So just to let you know, about 27% of all children with an intellectual or developmental disability elope. Half of children with autism elope. Now, just to point out, these are United States statistics. And more than a third are not able to give someone the pertinent information that would help that person get them back home to safety. So what are some of the reasons why somebody might elope? Well, it could be that they're just trying to satisfy a need. So for instance, let's say somebody is really hungry and they know that there's a McDonald's, 3 blocks down the street. Well, if they're not able to express, I'm hungry, they may just go ahead and head to the McDonald's themselves to try to satisfy that need. They may want to get someplace that they really like. We have a coworker who, when her son was 6 years old, he left the house. He was found trying to cross a major highway, a major Baltimore highway, because he was trying to get to a store that he knew sold a CD that he really wanted. It could also be that they're trying to escape. Now, when I say escape, it could be from an abusive environment, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. It could simply be they're trying to escape an environment where they're overstimulated. So take, for instance, a school classroom that has fluorescent lights overhead. Well, for those of us that are able to filter out the fact that those lights flicker and make a noise, we can tolerate them. But for somebody with sensory overload, it may feel like a strobe light and it may make a piercing sound. Now add that on top of the teachers trying to talk. Other students in the room are trying to talk. Students are ruffling papers and moving books around. And that can just be overwhelming and too much. So you may have somebody that's just trying to run away and get to a less stimulating environment. If there are two things we want you to remember when you leave this presentation. The first, now again, this is a United States statistic. 71% of the deaths that occur from wandering and elopement are due to drowning. We don't know what the draw to water is. It could be the glistening of the water. It could be the sound that water makes. Also, I just spoke about those heightened sensitivities. Well, if you're somebody who's completely overwhelmed by too much visual stimuli and everything's too loud and smells are too intense, well, when you're under the water, everything is muted. Also, a lot of individuals with autism are comforted by deep pressure. And when you're underwater, that creates a pressure against the body. Now, when we're talking about bodies of water, we're not just talking about lakes, the ocean, rivers, small bodies of water also, swimming pools, retaining ponds, streams, creeks. It only takes a few inches of water for someone to drown. So we always encourage swim lessons. And it doesn't need to be teaching somebody how to have a great swimming stroke. Anything that's life-sustaining. So whether that's doggy paddling, treading water, floating on their backs. And this risk, by the way, that statistic is the same all year round. That is the same in January as it is in July.
So calling the police immediately. It's
This
so
is the
important.
second major
Oh,
takeaway
right.
that we
Yeah,
remember.
thank you, Shelly. So calling the police immediately. I need to share, we're in the Washington, D.C. area, in Montgomery County, Maryland. We've had probably 30 or so incidences in the last couple of months where individuals on the autism spectrum have wandered. And in almost all of those cases, we, the police or the community, are finding the individual before caregivers are calling. This includes the very best of caregivers. They're not calling 911 for many different reasons, maybe just scared or don't want to have a police involvement or whatever the case may be. We are finding usually our youngsters in very dangerous situations, pools, drainage areas, in traffic, in the middle of intersections, just to name a few. And that is just, our average is about 3 to 8 fines a week for our individuals, usually on the autism spectrum, that have wandered. Part of our unit's mission is a follow-up. We reach out to those families. We're at about 500 follow-ups this year so far. We reach out to families and we go over the importance of calling 911 immediately, what safety precautions they can take, telling them if this happens again, call right away, call 911. Be, truthful is an interesting word. Just be as truthful, as honest as you can about the amount of time that your loved one is missing. This is especially true for siblings. You have a sibling in charge of a young individual in the autism spectrum, and holy smokes, they're playing video games, they're distracted, their sibling goes out the door and they think, oh my gosh, I can't call the police. We keep saying 911. I can't call the police because mom and dad are going to be mad or the police are going to be upset. Have that conversation with your family, with anyone who's watching your child, aunties, grandmas, anyone who's watching your child. Tell them what you expect out of them if your child is missing. Is it calling the police? Is it letting them know? Come up with a plan for that. And when you call your local police department, tell them about the diagnosis. Even if you don't have an official diagnosis, tell them the behaviors that would put your child in most risk when they're missing. They won't look both ways crossing the street. They may go to a body of water. Be very open with the behaviors that your child has when you do call your local law enforcement or police, whatever that may be.
And just to point out, literally as we were coming onto this presentation, Laurie had a critical missing that we were just coordinating, getting the information out there shared.
Yeah, that's a purple alert. And yes, that individual is still missing as of this taping.
Mhm.
Fleeing from school. And I know this is an international presentation, but it's true for any area. We do see where our kids are able to elope or flee from school for the same reasons. Sensory overload. Maybe they just want to go to a different place. It's so important that if your child is exhibiting behaviors of wandering at home, they probably will do it at school. You need to give the teachers a heads up. Inform the teachers. Let them know the behaviors that you're seeing so they can work on it at school. And if you
And
have a
Laurie,
learning,
may I
oh,
just jump in with when you say
yeah,
teachers, we don't just mean the child's homeroom teacher or primary
oh,
teacher.
right.
We mean every teacher in the school. And really everybody who works in the school, because you may have facility managers or maintenance managers who they should be alerted because if they see the child alone walking through the hallway, so they will know, I've already been told this is not okay.
Oh, good point. Good point, Shelly. Yeah, that's true for all staff. Let them know what the expectations are if your child is missing. If it's you would like them to call your local law enforcement, that's what they should do. Make sure that you set up those expectations before there's an incident at school. If in your school program or school curriculum you have lesson plans or learning plans, make safety, wandering, elopement, addressing safety part of that learning plan at school. Especially important, field trips. We just had an incident here in our area where a young, non-speaking young girl, 8 years old, was missing from a field trip. The school did not call for 3 hours. That is unacceptable. 3 hours that child was not attended, and ultimately we found the child first, but didn't know where the child belonged. So again, field trips. Let everyone know, even the bus drivers, everyone know that your child may have a propensity or a likelihood of wandering and that your child, you need to be on heightened alert. And is it what just figure out how many people are going to be with your child on a field trip like that. And I know, and Shelly, for the ICD-9, the diagnostic code for wandering, that might be more of a United States kind
It
of
might be from the
specific.
DSM-5.
Yeah, so but here's the thing. It's just so important that whatever your standards are for the school, that you make sure that your expectations as a parent for what should take place if your child is missing at school, they need to really be discussed before there's a wandering episode. Really important.
Okay, so Laurie just mentioned that she's finding individuals long before they're ever reported missing. So it's really important to have identification on your loved one. Um, that can be labels on the clothing or inside the clothing. Most people are aware of the dog tags and the medical alert bracelets, but we know with sensory issues, a lot of individuals can't tolerate those. So shoe tags. We have on our website multiple companies that are located in all across the United States that have like shoe tags that you can use that will have the person's contact information, have the caregiver's contact information with that. And something really simple too, we don't tend to think about, a Sharpie. In a pinch, if you take a Sharpie and you put your contact information on your loved one's arm, and then if you take like a liquid Band-Aid type of solution and you paint that over it, it'll help seal that.
Technology. And again, we're coming to you from the United States. So here's the thing. Always do your homework, but know that technology tracking devices should always be used in partnership with all possible safety measures first. We don't want to track to a tragedy. I'm going to say that again. We don't want to track to a tragedy, meaning that your child is wearing a device, but they go into a body of water and you hadn't called 911. Just know that
Or call the
tracking all
police.
or call sorry, thank you, Shelly. Or so all technology is going to have some challenges. Some of that being your child isn't going to keep it on. It's because of sensory issues, or it's not accurate, or it doesn't utilize GPS. It uses a crowdsource or a tracking source technology like a Bluetooth. Really do your homework. Really, really do your homework. Never ever put all your eggs in one basket. There's a United States euphemism there, but never just assume that technology is going to be the saving grace. Make sure that if you're utilizing technology in any capacity, wearing tracking device, an alarm on the doors, that you have many different layers of safety to keep your loved ones safe. Just don't assume that it's going to be perfect. And here's the other thing. Even if you are tracking your loved one wearing a device, also call the police, because you could track to the wrong location and then you've wasted valuable time. So just take that in mind and make sure you really do your homework on any device or any system you decide to use. Home modifications. When we do our follow-ups, we work with families to say, what could you put in place to keep your loved ones safe, or to notify you if your child has left. A couple of things. Fences are great, but our guys are pretty nimble, and sometimes they can just put a chair up to a fence and they're over. Door alarms, fantastic. Most times our kiddos can sneak out of the door and you don't even know they're gone. So having an alarm that the child can't have access to, really good idea. Key bolts, there's other bolts on the top of the door. But here's the thing, you have to weigh the elopement versus the fire risk, that the child or house family members won't be able to get out of the house. There are great solutions that you can purchase that may slow a child down, but they won't be a fire hazard, meaning you're not going to be trapped within a house. That's also important. And again, something to discuss with family inside of the house. Whatever modifications that you decide to use, make sure that the whole family is on board for the fire side of it, as well as why we're putting these measures in place. Because you could have a typical teenager that leaves the house, doesn't put the bolt up, doesn't set the alarm. So it's important that this is a united effort within your family, whatever home modifications for safety you choose.
Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, I always describe our kids as liquid ninja cats. And they're smart. They're so smart. I have a friend whose son was an eloper, and so she put alarms on every window, every exterior door. Well, her son one day went over to the window, took the battery cover off of the alarm, removed the batteries, put the cover back on. So, of course, my friend had no idea that the batteries were missing. And then as soon as he had the opportunity where someone wasn't watching him, that's the window he went out. And with my own son, when he was 4 years old, we put a lock at the very top of the front door. In less than an hour, I stood there and I watched him stack furniture until he was able to reach it. It's hard to stay a step ahead of them.
Social stories, super important. It's you folks ask, how can I familiarize my child with law enforcement, and we really encourage that. Never use the police or your law enforcement as a, like a, I don't want to say like a threat to your kids. Like if you don't wear your seatbelt, the police they're gonna come get you. Never ever do that. You want your children to feel comfortable going to a police officer in the event, one, they're in crisis, or two, that they're missing. So make sure you have that level of understanding that your child feels comfortable going to law enforcement. And social stories are a great way to do this. We have the young lady on the left here. She's with our mounted park officers. They're mounted horseback officers. And she actually eloped one time. It's not even an exaggeration. She's a young lady who has autism. She wandered from her house in the middle of the night and went to a horse barn and took a horse with only a dog leash and a flashlight, and had the horse's halter, took the horse from the stall, and ended up going down a road called Beach Drive, which is outside of Washington, D.C. Officers found her. And what we did is we took some pictures. After all of this happened, she was fine. But we worked with her on some social stories and taking pictures when the officers went to speak with her about how dangerous what she did was in taking the horse and putting the horse at risk. So that's one example of a social story that we would take pictures so her parents could say, do you remember what the officers told you about, your wandering and how you took that horse? Again, funny story, she was fine. The other is a young man on the right side, is a young man who had some behaviors that his parents maybe had to call the police for. And we wanted him to know that when the police came, we were going to help him. And it's just a way to bring that comfort level. But here's the other thing. Sorry, I have a fire truck going right past me. Here's the other thing. It also allows the officers, when you're taking that picture, give them a little bit of information about your child. It's a great opportunity to build some understanding and relationships with your local law enforcement, and then keep the pictures so that you can go over whatever it is that you want to focus on in a social story. And this, Shelly, this is our sample social story. Do you want to go over that a little bit?
Or if you want to, you can go ahead and.
So I think what Shelly and I always say is it's important to make the social story applicable to your child. So let's say you've got a kiddo, and maybe they're even non-speaking. They're non-speaking. Maybe you create a social story that says where that child lives. You take a picture, maybe of an apartment building, and then you take a picture of a stop sign, and you work on having a stop sign that child knows if he sees a stop sign, he can't go out the door. Then you take other pictures that maybe focus on a behavior of not wandering, right? The picture of mom and dad will be happy that I'm safe. Staying in my house will keep me safe. And it's something that you can go over with that child to plant the seed of why wandering might be not safe and what other options the child has as opposed to just bolting from the house. That's just one example. There's many ways to use social stories.
And again, it's important when you're creating these, use pictures of your own family, your own home, so that way your loved one isn't trying to generalize from something that's not actually familiar to them. So we share a lot of resources together. Laurie and I have been working together for at least a decade. When she was talking about technology, I want to say that on our website, we have a section under our safety section on tracking devices. At the very top of that section are all of the things that you need to keep in mind and really ask yourself and explore when you're investigating different technology solutions. Um, something else that ties into this, but it may not be something that you tend to think about with wandering and elopement: internet safety. Who are your loved ones talking to on the internet? Are they talking to strangers that could very easily lure them out to go and meet them? So you may have an individual, your loved one, your child may have never eloped before, but now they're talking to someone online who's convinced them, hey, leave the house in the middle of the night, or hey, if no one's there or when no one's looking, leave the house and come meet me. And then this is our contact information. Both Laurie and I make ourselves available to try to help people, offer advice, share resources. And if you have a question or you're in need of a resource and we're not the appropriate person, we will get you directed to somebody that can help you.
Yeah, within or in or outside of the United States. Happy to help. All
We've
right.
provided resources to Australia, so.
Yeah,
Oh,
and I see a
Laurie?
question. What
Yes. So
steps?
Laurie,
What was that?
can you read it from your phone?
No, I didn't. I missed it.
All right, I'm going to read it for you if you can answer it.
Okay.
What steps should schools or therapy centers take to prevent wandering incidents?
So first and foremost, for prevention of wandering incidents, that's tough, but you can make sure that doors are secured. Make sure that maybe the door is slowed down, meaning that the door has something on it that would slow down a child's ability to leave. It's challenging in schools because they too have to follow fire safety guidelines. But here's the thing, just have discussions. What are we doing? Have a plan in place. Who's calling the police? We always tell our staff at schools that the person that last saw that child needs to call 911. It shouldn't be the front desk administrative assistant that's calling 911 who knows nothing about the child. It should be either the paraeducator, the teacher that was with that child, the staff member that was with that child. So the prevention part is more challenging because schools are very fluid, right? There's not much restriction. They can just go out the door. The important piece is being prepared ahead of time in what you're going to do. How are we responding as a school? What are we doing?
And start documenting. Why start trying to figure out what is causing the elopement behavior. So if it's always that the student runs from the cafeteria, okay, so let's look at the environment of the cafeteria. Maybe it's just too loud, too chaotic. Um, was there a specific incident that caused your child to run? So really documenting what happened before your child took off.
Great point. Any other questions?
All
Are
right,
there any
Laurie, are
legal, good, read it? Sorry,
protections,
Shell.
yeah. Oh, I'm going to read it for you since I know you're on a small screen. Are there any legal protections or government programs that assist families dealing with elopement risks?
So in the United States, yes, we definitely utilize, many different programs here. Pathfinders for Autism is one. Outside of the United States, I'm not as aware, but within, so what we've done here is there's government funding, that's state funding through our lists. If you wanted to Google it to get an idea, LISS program, that's low intensity support services. They provide funding for all types of safety protocols and procedures and other devices. So that's one example that we have here in Maryland that could be duplicated across
And we
in
do
another
have
nation.
Oh, and we do have on our website, under our provider directory, we have grants and funding sources. So we do have some websites that are based outside of the United States. I mean, I'm sorry, that are based outside of Maryland that provide funding for different safety precautions and strategies.
But the most important, and we'll close with this, I know there's no more questions, regardless of where you are located on the globe, making sure that your local law enforcement, whatever that may be, is familiar with autism, and that when you need to call them, you're an advocate for your child and you tell them exactly what you need. That's the most important thing. And thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for joining us.